Oh yeah, it's my birthday on the 7th of January, so I got that. But here's what it looks like in the front. Here's what it looks like behind. I put the toe here. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's got some skin colored toe. It's got a yoke, so that's the yoke part, and then that's the like bodice. That's the side profile. My lunch belly. That's the back profile. So just a basic simple top made with a pattern, and it fits so well. Alright guys, to make your own blouse, you need the following items. You need your paper scissors, your fabric scissors, you need your measuring tape, you need your tailor's chalk, you need some Sharpies for your pattern, masking tape for your pattern as well, some rulers and pattern master. You'd also need your fabric. I have 1 yard of Adira fabric here, 1 yard of lining, and I know it's not brown, but just excuse me. About 1 yard of tulle. I've got 1 yard of interfacing, and I've got my pattern as well. So for my pattern, I've got my bodice, and if you don't know how to make a bodice, check out the video I have linked in the description bar showing you how to make like a bodice from scratch, and also check out the video on how to make a skirt pattern as well. So for this skirt pattern, I used it for another tutorial that you guys are going to see this month, and I decided to like repurpose it as well instead of wasting it. So this is what it looks like when it's full, but when I had to cut it along the hip line level, and to be fair, that's all I really need for this one as well. Alright guys, so to start off, the first thing you want to do is you want to combine your bodice to your skirt, basically just join them. Now you'll notice that when I put it together, ideally the dart on the bodice and the dart on the skirt don't necessarily match up. So it's your responsibility to make sure that they match up, because obviously this doesn't look great. So this is where your masking tape comes in. You don't want to use sellotape, it has to be masking tape because it's easy to take out. So you go ahead and merge them together using your masking tape, just like I'm doing, and it's important that they start at the very same side. So if necessary, go ahead and use your cutting mat, as you know, to make sure it's aligned at the center front area, to make sure it's straight. So go ahead and put the masking tape from the beginning all the way to the end, and as you can see, I've zoomed in closer now. At the end, it's not meeting. So this happened because they were made separately. However, what we're going to do now is try to make sure that they align and they meet at the sides. So I insert another piece of paper, and then I use my masking tape as well at the end, and I'm just kind of going to do what I call reshaping the waist area. So after I had in the paper, I use my French curve or any other curve that you have, and I kind of blend the lines together, and then I trim off the excess paper. So this is what it looks like now, and it looks all good. Again, at the center front, you need to make sure that it's aligned. Some tape was sticking out, so that's why I cut it over. The next thing you want to do is you want to draw a new waistline, and you're going to be drawing the waistline using the joining as a guide. So essentially where the bodice and the skirt meets is where you're going to use as a guide for your waistline. Alright guys, so I need you guys to pay attention at this point. Now that you have your new waistline, the next thing you want to do is you want to get your waist measurement and divide that by 4, a quarter of your waist measurement. In my case, it's 84 centimeters. Divided by 4 will give me 21. So that means a quarter of my waist measurement is 21 centimeters. After doing that, you want to go ahead and measure your new waistline using a measuring tape or a ruler. I tend to use a ruler because I feel like it's a little bit more accurate, and I think after measuring I got 25 centimeters. So that means that my new waistline is 25 centimeters. Now as you can see, I went ahead to make the midline of the bodice darts really like bold, and why we're using that midline as a point of reference is because that's where your bust point or your nipple point starts. So just kind of use that as your point of reference. That's where we're going to be using for our new darts anyway. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to take the measurement that you've taken on the waistline, which is 25 centimeters in my case, minus a quarter of your waist measurement, which is 21 centimeters in my case. After doing the subtraction, you will get 4 centimeters. So that means the excess on the new waistline is 4 centimeters. 4 centimeters, well, in my case, 4 centimeters divided by 2 gives me 2. So starting from the new midpoint, which I said is the point of reference, you're going to go ahead and mark 2 to the left and 2 to the right. So again, guys, I'm saying 2 because that's what it is in my case. If in your case, you know, your difference between your new waistline and a quarter of your waist measurement is 6, from the midpoint or from the bust point, you're gonna mark like 3 to the left and 3 to the right. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I'm going to repeat this again for the back so you guys can see it. Next, I decided to check like my whole blouse length and just make sure that it was what I wanted. I think I had to cut off about 1 inch away because, you know, or about 2 centimeters away just to get the length that I wanted. So basically you start measuring from the shoulder neck point and then cut off the excess that you don't need. So it was just a little bit. So I promised to show you guys again, so let's go ahead and repeat the entire process. So taking the back bodice, you want to get the back bodice and the back skirt piece, and you want to start from the center back and align your pieces together at the waistline. So go ahead and use your masking tape and join them together with the masking tape. Alright guys, while merging your bodice to your skirt, one important thing to do or to note is that you want to make sure that you have the barest minimum space or even no space at all between the bodice and the skirt. So as you can see at this point, the side seam has a bit of an excess on the bodice. So go ahead and add another piece of paper, and then we're going to go ahead and use the masking tape. Now what we want to do is reshape the side seam so that we have, you know, a very smooth side seam. So get your French curve and then go ahead and reshape as shown. After reshaping, cut off the excess paper and you should have, you know, your bodice looking like this. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to sort out the dart so that we have one dart that goes all the way from the bodice to the skirt, not these 2 darts that don't align. To do that, you want to go ahead and draw your new waistline starting from the center back all the way to the side seam. After drawing your new waistline, you want to take the measurement and write it down. So in this case, it's 25 centimeters and I've written it on the side. Next, you want to find a quarter of your own waist measurement, and in my case, it's 21. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to find the center line of the dart on the bodice. So as you can see, I marked the center line on the dart of the bodice. Now, you also want to do one more thing. You want to take away your new waistline measurement, which is 25 in my case, minus a quarter of your waist measurement, which is 21 in my case, and that gives me 4 centimeters. Now 4 centimeters divided by 2 is 2. So as you can see, to the left of my mid dart line I marked 2, and to the right I marked 2. Next thing to do is to reconnect your dart, and you want to square down your center line, and then you want to draw your dart so that it meets. I'm using a red marker so you guys can see clearly, but as you can see, I squared down my dart first and then I went ahead to draw the dart so that I have like a diagonal shape. I didn't alter the center line on the bodice because there was no need to. So the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that your blouse matches, you know, your blouse length matches your front blouse length. So I went ahead to measure what I needed for my blouse length, and then I went ahead to cut off the excess. To make it easier to finish your blouse, go ahead and extend the center line. So as you can see, I just took it all the way down. It's always better to square down as opposed to just draw a straight line. And after squaring down, the next thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and, you know, sort out the yoke. So I'm making a blouse with a yoke. To do that, you want to go ahead and close your upper dart, so the dart at the top or your shoulder dart, and to close it is easier to fold towards the right way to fold is towards your armhole. So as you can see, I folded it towards the armhole. Now after folding towards the armhole, the first thing I wanted to do was kind of show my neck depth that I wanted. So I took the neck depth lower, which is basically sorting out the neckline. So I brought it down about 3 centimeters or 4 centimeters, and then I marked my desired shoulder width, and the shoulder width I went for was 6 centimeters. I started marking my shoulder width from the armhole area, right? But my neck depth I started marking from the center front neck area. So as you can see, I drew my new neckline and I kind of marked where I'm going to be cutting away. Now that that's done, you can decide to make your yoke a sweetheart neck if you wanted, but bear in mind that your bust point is, you know, the last line that is not full. However, I wanted to do a straight yoke. So for my straight yoke, don't just draw a straight line, guys. While your dart is closed, take a set square and draw like the line that you want. So this is where I wanted my yoke, and I went ahead to draw that line. Again, it's up to you. You can make it lower, you can make it higher, and you can make it a sweetheart neck if you want. Now that that's done, go ahead and cut your yoke piece away and label it as yoke. Then we're going to go ahead and do something. For people who are a bit busty, it's important that you do this next step so that your yoke fits nicely. So go ahead and starting from the dart lines that you have, or the dart legs, go ahead and measure 2 centimeters. As you can see, 1.5 to 2 centimeters. So I'm doing 1.5 centimeters here, and I went ahead to measure that to the left of the first dart leg and to the right of the other dart leg. So as you can see, you have that. The aim of this is to make sure that your blouse fits nicely around the bust area, and it's just taking off the little bit of an excess. It's very important, as small as it is, as small as this step is, it's very important that you do that. After doing that, go ahead and cut through your pieces as shown. So you should have like 2 pieces. So in this case, the yoke is going to be piece number 1, and then we're going to have piece number 2 as the center front and piece number 3 as the side front. As you can see, this is what it looks like. Now for the yoke, we're going to repeat the same process of removing a bit of excess so that it fits with our bodice. Okay, it's very important that if you do something on the up part, you repeat it on the bottom part so that it fits nicely. So again, remove the paper tape or your masking tape, and then go ahead and measure the same thing that you measured, one to the left and one to the right of the dart legs. After doing that, you're going to go ahead and connect it as shown, and then we're going to go ahead and reshape our dart. So fold it over, pinch it, and then fold it over the new dart leg. So you're folding the new dart leg over the new dart leg essentially. After doing that, take your masking tape and then tape it together. Masking tape is really easy, so don't use sellotape, guys. Masking tape is very important because it's really easy to take out and replace. And then you notice a small part sticking out around the neckline. Trim it off, and guys, that's it. That's all you need. As you can see, the yoke is ready. So we've got piece 1, piece 2, and piece 3 for the front pieces. We're going to go ahead and work on the back pieces now. On the back piece, go ahead and extend the shoulder dart. So essentially, from the starting point of the dart legs, you want to go ahead and extend it so that it meets the waist dart at the apex, which is what I'm doing now. So extend the shoulder dart as shown, and after extending the shoulder dart as shown, you can go ahead and reshape it, which is basically closing the dart towards the shoulder. So again, if you like, you can use some paper tapes or some pins to hold the dart in place, but the essence of closing it is so that you achieve the exact shape that you would have after sewing it, right? So that's why it's important to keep the dart closed. So like I said, use paper tape or use a pin and then close your dart in place. And after doing that, we're going to mark the shoulder width. So you want to make sure that your shoulder width on the front and on the back piece match. And I use 6 centimeters on the front. So basically I marked 6 centimeters starting from the armhole area into the shoulder. So same thing. Now for the back depth, or for the neck depth I should say, you can go ahead and play around with it. If you want a V-neck, if you want a round neck, if you want it like really, wide, whatever you want, go ahead and play around with it. I decided to make my back neckline a bit lower, so I went ahead from the line I can see there and I made it lower. But it's important that wherever your yoke stops, it kind of matches on the front and on the back, which is why I took my front yoke, placed it on the back piece just to make sure that it matches. But you can see in this case, I didn't make the yoke straight. I kind of did a curve with the yoke and I just did it freehand. Now on the dart line, go ahead and extend it to the end of the blouse, which is important. And then we have our pieces. So again, the yoke is going to be piece number 1, and then we have piece number 2 on the center back and piece number 3. Go ahead and cut out your pieces as shown, and then label it so that you don't get confused. Also, it's important that you add your sewing allowances if that will make your job easier. So after cutting out the pieces, here's what you should have. You should have 3 pieces, one for the center back yoke piece, the second one for the center back, and then the third one for the side back. So these are all the 3 pieces. Now that all our pieces have been cut, we have 6 pieces of pattern that we're going to be working with. It's time to cut our fabric. So again, remember I said I was going to be using adire, and adire is like, I think it's like local tie and dye or batik kind of fabric. I might be wrong, I might be totally wrong, guys, but I know that adire is native to Nigeria. However, I got this in a shop in Brixton. So yeah, go ahead and get your fabric. I literally only have a yard of fabric. Get your pins, get your fabric scissors, and your tailor's chalk and your measuring tape as well. And it's time for us to cut our fabric. To start off, fold your fabric into two and just make sure that you have the right sides facing each other on the inside and the wrong side facing you. So basically, the wrong side is on the table and facing me. Also make sure that you have it smooth, so it's been folded into two and it's all smooth. So starting with the center front piece, I'm going to go ahead and pin it, making sure that the edge of the center front aligns with the edge of my fabric. So pin that in place and then go ahead and mark out your sewing allowances. The recommended sewing allowance for the center front piece is 1/2 inch at the top, 1/2 inch at the sides, and then depending on what you want for the hem, 1 inch to 1.5 inches. So I think I went with 1.5 inches at the hem. Repeat the same thing for all the pieces. So again, I started with all the front pieces. So this is the center front done, and then now I'm doing the side front, and obviously then I'm going to move to the back pieces as well. Remember that the yoke will be used with will be cut on a different fabric, so not this fabric for the yoke. So go ahead and pin all the fabrics and then add the appropriate sewing allowances. It's important that whatever you start at the hem of the blouse, you know, for any of the pieces is what you keep. So if you do 1.5 inches for the center front, keep that for the side front, keep that for the center back, keep that for the side back, so that it's uniform. And on the side seam, I recommend at least 1 inch on the side seam. So obviously that's only going to be present on the side front and the side back, and obviously the center back, which will be, you know, the zipper allowance. Okay, so that we're not confused, so again, as you can see on the center front, 1/2 inch on the top, 1/2 inch on the sides, and then 1.5 inches at the bottom. Same thing for the side front. For the side front, you have one inch on the side where you have the armhole area, which is what I'm marking now. 1/2 inch on the other side, which joins to the center front, 1/2 inch at the top, and then 1.5 inches at the bottom. And then on the center back, we have 1 inch around the zip area, which is the center back area, 1.5 inches, you know, at the bottom, 1/2 inch on the side that joins to the other part, and 1/2 inch at the top. So a little something that I recommend is to mark the wrong side, just because it's, especially with the fabrics like Adire or Ankara, it's a bit confusing when you have the right and the wrong sides of the fabric. So it's important that you put like an X or just mark it with your, you know, tailor's chalk so that you don't miss it. So now it's the last part of the fabric. I didn't have enough fabric, so I'm just taking like another part of the fabric and just cutting enough so I don't waste the fabric. And I'm just folding enough rather so that I can just cut the last piece. On the last piece is the side back. On the side that joins to the dart, you just mark 1/2 inch. On the side that is the side seam, you mark 1 inch. At the bottom, I recommend 1.5, which is what I've been using. And at the top and the armhole area is 1/2 inch. So basically I had 1 inch of fabric, but as you can see, I really didn't even, 1 yard of fabric, I should say, sorry. But as you can see, I didn't even really use all my fabric. I literally just used a little bit of my fabric. So yes, yeah, that's how you cut it, really. Now that all the pieces have been cut with the main fabric, the next thing to do is to cut the lining. So guys, ignore the fact that my lining is colored black. I didn't have any brown lining and I needed to film this tutorial. So basically you want to go ahead and fold your fabric, your lining fabric, the exact same way, and have the center front pinned to the center front of the fabric or the folded part of the fabric. Make sure it's aligned. However, one noticeable difference is that you make your lining at least 1 inch shorter than your main fabric. So as you can see, for me, the lining of the main fabric is sticking out at the ends, you know, beyond the lining, which, you know, is why I said I made it 1 inch shorter. So again, like I said, that's how I recommend it. You can decide to make it, you know, 1.5 inches shorter, but at least 1 inch shorter, especially if you're going to finish up your blouse the same way that I finished up my blouse. So it's important that you do that. After pinning all the pieces onto the lining, go ahead and cut it out as shown, and then you should have all your pieces, like, you know, with the fabric and then the lining. Again, this process is a bit lengthy because we're going to do the same thing for our interfacing. Now that all the lining pieces have been cut, it's now time to cut the interfacing. Now for the front interfacing, I like to double it. So basically I have one interfacing for the main fabric and one interfacing for the lining. So I just like to double it. However, for the back, I just cut out one, like one piece. Like it will be on full, but just one piece, which will be for the lining. And I feel like for me, this just makes it like, look sturdier, the outfit. But if it's up to you, if you decide that you don't have enough interfacing for that and you can only do, one interfacing for like the front pieces, that's absolutely fine. Like I said, this is something that I just prefer to do. So now that we're done cutting out the interfacing, thankfully we're done with all the pieces for the main bodice. We're going to go ahead and cut out the pieces for the yoke. So for the yoke pieces, I like to line my tool, and what I did was just fold my tool into 4 so that I can line it in place essentially. So I folded my tool into 2 and then folded it again, as you can see. So I have like, it will cut out 2 times, 2 pieces of whatever I'm cutting. I kind of just refolded so that I'm avoiding waste. And what I just did was I folded it into 2 and then folded it over so that it's kind of into 4, and that way I will still have 2 pieces. So like I said, you want to make sure that your center front aligns with the folded part of the fabric and then pin it in place. Obviously you also want to pin in your center back in place, but make sure that you have enough space for your allowances. Now for tool, the rule of thumb is to have ½ inch allowance all through. So basically even at the center back, ½ inch, at the top ½ inch, at the armhole area ½ inch, where it joins to the bodice ½ inch, and the necklines ½ inch. So now that all the allowances have been marked, you go ahead and cut it out as shown. Alright guys, so at this point I'm sure your fingers must be sore from cutting, but we're done cutting now guys, I promise you. So it's now time to iron on your interfacing onto your fabric and onto your lining for the front pieces, and then obviously onto your lining for the back pieces. I like to iron out my front pieces first, just because sometimes it's rumpled. So iron it out first and then make sure that you have the wrong side facing you, then iron on your interface onto it. For the interface, it's really obvious, it's really easy to tell the part that has the glue, and it's the part that feels rough, rough to touch or a bit shiny when you look at it. So just place that on the wrong side of the fabric piece and then iron it on. If there's any area sticking out, make sure you just trim it off, which is what I did. And after that, so that you don't get confused, pin it in place with the pattern paper so that you know what piece belongs to what. So because I cut my interfacing using the main fabric, I have like my interfacing sticking out, so it's okay, just go ahead and trim it like I've done, and now it fits again. So iron it in place and pin it back so that it's in place with the pattern pieces. And now you have that. So go ahead and do that for all your pieces, iron them in place, and at this point guys, we are literally done. Alright guys, so this is the end of part 1. I'm going to release part 2 next week. However, in the interim, go ahead and iron out all your pieces. Go ahead and cut out all your pieces. Watch this video as much as you need to, and let me know what other videos you like to see in the year. I'm ready for you guys, and I'm coming back on YouTube full time. So let me know what videos you like to see in the comment section. Thank you to all those who have responded already, and I'll see you next week. Bye guys.